In a moment, why one Russian lawyer believes the USSR still exists. First, today's Russian papers continue to write about how Moscow benefits from the Iran war. The headline in Moskovsky Komsomolets, Putin's Iranian chance. The conflict with Tehran, which Trump thought would be a walk in the park, threatens to become a black hole on which America will have to concentrate as many of its resources as it can, political, military, economic and so on. President Zelensky understands how dangerous the escalation and prolongation of the Iran crisis can be for him. If this scenario starts to play out, then his chief sponsor, Europe, will also have far fewer resources and less desire to spend them on Kiev. Zelensky's trump cards may turn into a pile of ash. A separate article here about the high price of oil, which makes Russia one of the main beneficiaries of escalation of the current military conflict in the Middle East. Iran's blockade of shipping through the Strait of Hormuz has removed up to 10% of daily oil supplies from the global market. Komsomolskaya Pravda's headline, Trump realizes that without Russia's help, the crisis in the Middle East cannot be resolved. The oil crisis means that the role of one of the biggest suppliers, Russia, has strengthened exponentially. Moscow's partnership with Beijing could quickly turn into a political alliance. America fears this. This is why Trump is trying to avoid falling out with Russia, to retain the possibility for future agreements. This isn't just about oil prices. The Russian government paper Rossiyskaya Gazeta writes that military escalation around Iran is already beginning to have a noticeable impact on global food markets. A key risk factor is the possible blocking of fertilizer supplies through the Strait of Hormuz, through which a significant part of the world's agrochemical trade flows. In this situation, Russia has a chance not only to make money on the high prices of fertilizer and food, but also to gain a foothold in new markets, which Middle Eastern suppliers are leaving. Now, listen to this take on Donald Trump and the Iran war in today's Nezavissimaya Gazeta. I wonder if it reminds you of another world leader and another war. So far, everything points to Trump having made a mistake as old as the world, repeated many times in history, in different countries, on different stages. It is a feature of personalistic regimes. There is one person in power there. He's in a tight information cocoon. Over the years, he's come to believe in his own genius, and those around him have learnt to say only what he wants to hear. And so he takes a decision in a narrow circle of one or two trusted persons without experts. As a result, the blitzkrieg scenario didn't work. The Iranian regime did not collapse after the first powerful blows. By the way, Russia's so-called special military operation in Ukraine is now in its 5th year. This commentator tells Vedomosti that Russia shouldn't get too excited by America's 30-day waiver on purchasing sanctioned Russian oil. We shouldn't delude ourselves that sanctions may soon be lifted. This is not a lifting of all the restrictions, including the full embargo on Russian oil, by G7 countries. Finally, as Moskovsky Komsomolets recalls, this week marks the 35th anniversary of the Soviet referendum, in which almost 75% of Soviet citizens voted to preserve the country, the USSR. Months later, though, the Soviet Union was, in effect, dissolved when the leaders of Russia, Ukraine and Belarus signed the Bielovesia Accords. Writing here, a pro-USSR lawyer condemns those accords and says the results of a referendum cannot be cancelled and do not lose legal force. Referendum decisions do not have a statute of limitations. The USSR and the referendum on preserving it remain a factor in current politics. The results of the referendum of March the 17th, 1991 remain in force. So the USSR is alive, not only in our hearts.